Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That is crazy. So when I was 7, my mom needed a part for her car, and some people, they'll just go to like the junkyard and get one off an old car there. It's a lot cheaper, and if you don't need it brand new, whatever. So we get there, and my mom's looking around, looking at the part and whatnot, and there's like some bees inside one of the cars that's next to the car she's looking at, and they're just kind of all over the place. I'm allergic, so my mom's like, hey, like, if you want to just kind of get a little farther away just so you don't get stung. And, I didn't have my EpiPen on me. She was concerned. So I'm like a few cars down, just kind of playing, and I notice this little mud puddle. And I kind of go out to the mud puddle, and I'm just playing in it, being a kid. And I don't remember exactly how I got on the ground, but all of a sudden I felt just crushed. And this guy working there was moving one of the minivans, and he was backing up over me. That crushing feeling was the back tire going over my body. And I just remember staring up, and I went into shock. I just paused. So he's backing up over me, back tire goes off, I'm in the middle, and then the front tire starts going over me, and I come out of it, and I just let out this horrid scream. And I literally remember looking up and seeing inside the rear view mirror, like, him see me, and his face completely flushed. He stops, tires still on me, and pulls back forward, jumps out of the minivan. And at this point, my mom realizes what's going on, and there's just a crowd of people just rushing over. And I'm just like sitting there, and everyone's like, oh my God, oh my God. My mom's calling the cops, all that, the ambulance. And I'm just telling them, I'm like, I'm fine. And there's some people like, don't touch her. There's some people like, get her out from under the car. So they like pull me out from under the vehicle, and they're just like, just trying to make sure I'm okay. They're panicking. And I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the hospital. The angels have saved me. I will be fine. And the ambulance showed up. By that time, my grandma, she didn't live too far. My mom had also called her. She was also there when the ambulance showed up. They told them that they cannot ride inside the vehicle with me because I was going to be dead on arrival. And they didn't want basically them seeing that. So they rode separately and followed the ambulance to the hospital. I got there. Obviously, there's a ton of tests that they run, and I told everybody the same thing. Everybody panicking about me. I said, I don't need to be here, and I'm crying, and I wanted to just go home. I'm like, I'm fine. I promise I don't need to be here. And the doctor she just kind of pauses. She's like, honey, like, what exactly, what do you mean? You were ran over by a car. And I'm like, listen, when I started getting ran over, I looked up, and it was just a bright light. And I told them that I swallowed angels, and they held my stomach up and prevented me from being crushed. I had no broken bones. One of my lungs did collapse, so there was a little fluid that got in there. It caused me to get some asthma for a couple years. Other than that, I was released out of the hospital 2 days later, and I went right back to being a normal kid. There were tons and tons of people that came and seen me, saying that this was the miracle child. My whole class came and seen me. It was just bizarre. I don't know if it was as bizarre as store-bought pesto, but
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
I don't have any store-bought pesto, but what I is a cat in a crock pot. And that reminds me about this really crazy thing that happened to me when I was in high school. So I was like in like 9th or 10th grade, and I was on the debate team, and we had a competition at our rival high school. And back in that time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, the exterior storm doors in the schools didn't always have windows, but you still use them for regular exits and entrances into the building. And so I was going into the building, and somebody was coming out of the building, and well, they opened the door. And I was wearing those like jelly shoes, and so the door went like this, and my feet went like this, both of them. And it was probably the worst pain I ever had in my entire life. It hurt so bad, and I went to my mom, who looked at me and was like, just, you're Gen X, you can just, walk it off. But after a couple days, I like still couldn't walk. So my mom's like, hey, we should probably go to the doctor. I go to the doctor, and my feet are literally too swollen to get in my shoes. But the doctor looks at me and says, you're fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Mind you, my feet are like 5 different shades of purple and black, and they just absolutely look horrible, and I can't walk or wear shoes. But I'm told to literally walk it off because I'll be fine, and take some ibuprofen. Crazy, right? The quality of medical care we got back in the 80s. This same doctor also told me that I had anxiety with like intense abdominal pain, which actually later found out were ruptured ovarian cysts. So, super great medical care. But, that's not the craziest part. So I need to fast forward like 20 years. So fast forward 20 years to when I'm an actual, I have my own health insurance, and I also have several kids. And my 3-year-old decided he wanted to climb up on top of a bar. So my kid climbs up on top of this bar stool, and he's really wobbly at it because he's not doing it in a way that's actually super safe. But I'm standing right there, so I just let him climb, right? Except he starts to wobble, and it falls completely over on top of my feet. It is blinding pain, white lights. I swear I'm going to pass out. I thought I've had other pain given birth naturally, but this was nothing compared to what I was experiencing. Like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to die from the pain. The pain is so bad that when air goes over the top of my feet, it hurts. Like, I've never experienced pain like this before. I thought for sure I definitely broke my foot. So I call up my best friend, and she takes me to the emergency room. They get me back there pretty quick, which surprised me because, the American healthcare system. And they do x-rays, and they said, guess what? You didn't break your foot, but did you ever have a foot injury in the past? Because we can see where you broke both your feet and all of your toes at some point in the past and never had it healed or set properly. So isn't this just totally crazy about the American healthcare system, how they just let a teenager just walk out of the doctor's office with probably 15 broken bones and not do anything about it? Absolutely crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never store-bought pesto. I don't know why.
Absolutely insane, man. I'd like to share a crazy thing too. Happened to me back in the year 2000, 23 years ago for me. Okay. So, New Year's Eve, okay, I'm babysitting for this lady. I babysat for her a couple of times before, all right, and she always followed through. All right, so New Year's Eve, this was totally different. So we have lady I'm babysitting for and new boyfriend, okay? There's also an old boyfriend that happens to be important here, okay? Sister and sister's new boyfriend as well. They're all going out to a New Year's Eve party, okay? I'm babysitting in her house. Her house just happens to be in a new development. In a new development. So there's no phone lines that have been run here, right? So I had my cell phone. Now, cell phones look like this back. Okay, they look like this one. Okay, this is the almost the exact one I had, but it was Bell. Moving on. Okay, so I'm babysitting her son and my brother, who's 11. I'm 13 at this time. Okay. I get a phone call on my cell phone saying lock all the doors and don't let anybody in because danger, Will Robinson, danger. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Tell me what's going on. And she goes, I can't really say much, but he's dangerous. He's dangerous. Okay, awesome. So I go and I lock all the doors. So the patio door downstairs and all the doors upstairs. Again, there's no phone line. Okay. I'm 13. I'm scared out of my wits. And I'm in a very practically empty house. They've just gotten into this house. Okay. There's a crawl space underneath the stairs. I put my brother and the little boy under the stairs and I'm like, please do not come out until I come downstairs. Okay. It's not safe just listen to me. And I'm like giving my brother the serious stare, like, just do it. Okay. So first, because again, no phone lines, I phoned my mom first. I'm like, Mom, there's something wrong. There's like a bad guy on the way. He's going to come and hurt us. Please. My mom was a cab driver at the time, so she was out and about already. And again, like where I was, new development, very far away from the city. Okay. I call my mom. She tells me what to do with the kiddos. I do that with the kiddos. I lock all the doors. I shut off all the lights, and I am standing in the front window with the curtains drawn, and I have a plastic wiffle ball bat in my hand, and I am like fucking ready to take on the fucking world at 13. While I'm waiting, I phone 911. Now, back then with those phones, once you phone 911 and like you've made the phone call, like, hi, I have a really bad person trying to come in the house. I'm alone. I'm this age. Please send the cops, please. They go, okay, the police are on the way. And then my phone goes into this like emergency signal thing, and it's just beep, 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 beep. So I had to put it on the couch underneath a pillow because it was loud. I waited a long time for police. Too long. Now, this is why the guy was dangerous. Okay, so remember, lady, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, sister's new boyfriend, okay? They all went to a party, New Year's Eve party. This guy gets in a fight with this guy because he shows up to try and reclaim this lady. This lady, brand new boyfriend, has mental problems, I guess. Everybody's drunk, and we all know what happens when people are drunk, right? Anyway, this guy kisses sister. This guy gets angry. This lady kisses this guy. Gets angry. This guy bottles this man in the face and throat. He had to be hellovaced out of wherever the hell they were. Okay. Now, this man is in a helicopter. These two men are angry, and the sisters are angry at each other. Okay. This man and these three people disappear. This man is on a rage because he just bottled this guy and he's running from the cops. He wants to come to the house because he thinks that's where sister, the girlfriend, the new girlfriend, went to. Okay. He made it there ahead of the police and my mother, and he's sitting at the end of the driveway waiting. That's where I'm like, wiffle ball bat in hand. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Okay. My mom pulls up in the taxi cab company cab that she's working for, and she pulls up ahead of this car, like blocking the house from where this guy is. Okay. She does not get out, but she's and I'm sitting here going, thank God my mom is here. Now, keep in mind, it's like now going on like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. These poor kids have been downstairs in the cupboard the whole time. My brother was a champ with the little dude. Okay. Finally, the police arrive along with the mom of the kid I was babysitting, the other sister, because she had to come and get her stuff because she was like staying there or whatever, right? And nobody's asking me if I'm okay or if the kids are okay, but it's like they needed to collect the sister, collect the stuff, and, you know, do something with the kid because the mom was like all sporadic and drunk and stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's this time in the morning. This is not really my situation. My mom's here. Me and my brother are going with my mom. Okay. So we leave. And then after all the hubbub happens, it's like, I'd say like 2 days later. I keep trying to call this lady and collect payment because like at 13, she promised me $100 in the year 2000. That's a lot of money. That was a lot of money. I was like, yes, I'm going to get paid. I hope I get paid after dealing with all that chaos. Also, you know, keeping her kids safe and having to call 911 and dealing with all that. So the lady ultimately did not opt to pay me because I left her son unattended, though she, her sister, and the police were all in her house at that moment in time. Didn't want to pay me, didn't say thank you, none of that. All while being totally terrified for my life, my brother's life, and her son's life. And also, did she not once apologize for the entirety of the situation because her and her sister and the people she were with basically created all of that chaos. happened to be a part of it. So yeah, store-bought pesto, that's crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That's crazy, Susie. That kind of reminds me of the time I joined an internet cult on Facebook. It was called Give Me Your Money, and I don't know if it's still active. I hope it's not, because it was one of the most toxic parts of the internet I've ever been on, and that's saying something. It was supposed to be a mutual aid group, so basically you needed $20 to buy pizza for you and your kids that night. You'd ask for $20, put your Cash App, plus a 10% tip for the moderators of the group, which we'll get into those in a second. And people would donate to you, and it seemed like a really, really great little mutual aid group. There were people from all over the world, and then it got bad. I'm not sure if it was toxic before I got in there, and I just noticed it after a while, or if it just really got bad while I was in there. But the moderators became gods. Gods. Anything they said go. Anything they said went. And they would ban you for the smallest things. My friends got banned multiple times. I was banned multiple times. The reason I was remembering this, Susie, is because I was going through my emails and I found one of a receipt of me paying them $10 to let me back into the Facebook group. I was brainwashed, legitimately. That was the first time I got banned. I did not pay the second time. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so they would put these pins out that one of the mods would design, and if you didn't have the pin, those were like a big deal. It was a sign of honor in the group of, oh, I have the pins, and the mods would let you off on stuff. But if you didn't have the pins, and if you just did something that the mods didn't like very much, they would tear you to pieces. They would post you, just a post of your name and what they said you'd done wrong, and thousands of people in the Facebook group would just rag on you. It was crazy, Susie. And I was so into it. I never really dragged on anyone unless it was something truly horrible. Sometimes people were truly horrible in that group. But I would just see all of these people just get banned, and then they'd pay, and then they'd get reinstated. I'd finally got banned for the final time when one of my friends defended another friend, and I defended that friend in a private group chat that we had, and someone in that group chat took it to the mods, took screenshots of our private group chat, sent it to the mods. We all got dragged, and I got banned, and I washed my hands of that whole business. I'm not really active in most Facebook groups these days now. But I don't know too much about Pesto, so it's on you. Please teach me, Susie.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Hey, Susie girl, I don't think that I call you crazy or anything like that. But, first of all, don't mind me. I'm just making a little rose for a friend for her birthday today. So, but that does remind me of this one time where I was in high school and I was being really stupid and wasn't listening to my mom when she told me to leave those boys alone. So I ended up pregnant. Anyways, so my son's dad and I broke up like 5 or 6 months before a baby was due because I just wanted to be young and free. Not really free if you got a baby on your hip. Anyways, so we ended up, he was there at the hospital. We had our kid or whatever. Well, about 2 months after I had our son, I was like, oh, okay, well, nobody's ever going to want me because I've got a kid and I'm young, and that was a really stupid decision to me. My son is not a mistake. But, at the time, it felt like the world was ending because nobody's ever going to want me. Well, this guy came around that I met a few years ago at my mom's job, and he decided that he wanted to be with me. And so he starts coming around and buying me presents and taking me to dinner and all this crap. So I'm like, okay, well, he's paying attention to me, so let me lock that down real quick. So we got engaged, we got married. Really had no business getting married that young, but my mom was trying to make me happy, so we did. So anyways, we got married. I moved in with him, and within like 2 weeks, he's already asking for divorce. And I'm just like, I'm a young kid, but I'm trying my hardest. Like, cut me some slack. I don't understand why you want to leave me. So I did everything I could to make him stay. Well, then he starts getting abusive. It'd be over stupid stuff. Like one time I went to work and went to the nurse and blamed it on the fact that I fell at work, when really he got mad at me over something stupid and threw a glass at my ankle, and it was like really, really bruised. Anyways, so I don't know if you know what the Iron Bowl is, Susie, but the Iron Bowl, since we lived in Alabama, is the biggest game of the season. So it's the Alabama-Auburn game. Biggest game of the season. Happens Saturday after Thanksgiving every single year. So he was an Alabama fan, and this has nothing to do with Alabama fans because it's not an Alabama fan thing, it's a him thing. So by this time, he was already being abusive, and he had already started talking to this girl, and he was taking her on dates to church. Don't come for Christians. Not a Christian thing. He wasn't a Christian. He was just pretending, and that was a him thing. Anyways, so at this point, things are already rough. He's already being abusive. He's already talking to this other girl, and his team lost that year. I was so excited because Alabama lost, and Alabama fans, I don't know if you know this, Susie, they can be quite, they're not fun to deal with sometimes. They're cocky. So anyways, dude got mad because I told him, I said, hey bro, you're just mad your team lost. And then the worst beating of my life happened. So I'm like, okay, that's the last straw because I'm sick of this. I can't do this. I'd already done this for 4 years at this point, and I'm just sick of it. So my granddad and I make a plan because my granddad could not stand his guts because, like, of course, he's hurting his favorite granddaughter. And anyways, so he makes a plan, and we decide that we are going to leave on a week before Christmas that year. So I do that. I pack up all my stuff and I leave. And my granddad takes me to my aunt's house in Florida. Okay. So now that we're all caught up, I'm at my aunt's house in Florida. And I don't know if you know this, Susie, but sometimes abused women think that they have no other options and they go back to their abuser. That's what I did because I was this young, stupid kid. And so I went back, and he was still texting the girl, and I thought he had left her alone. Well, he hadn't. So I texted her, and I told her, I said, hey, bro, I paid for this cell phone. If you want to talk to him, buy a cell phone for him because I paid for this. Anyway, she came over with her sister. She tried to fight me. Okay. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not coming back to this. This is stupid. Why the heck would I do this? So I started trying to file the divorce papers, and he's just like, oh, if you want me to divorce you, because he was still in Alabama, and he was like an hour and a half from where my aunt lives. So I was like, bro, I really want this divorce to be over. So I submitted paperwork or whatever at the courthouse in Alabama because technically my residence on file was still there. And I submitted the paperwork, and then I got a letter in the mail in Florida, and it's like, hey, by the way, you owe us this much money because you canceled your divorce. I said, excuse me? Cancel what? No, I didn't. And so I went all the way back to Alabama. And I'm like, bro, why did y'all say that I canceled it? Because I didn't do that. Well, apparently he had pretended to be me and written a letter and sent it into the courthouse saying, oh, my name is Chastity, da-da-da-da, and I want to cancel the divorce against my husband because we decided to work it out. And I'm like, no, we didn't. So she's like, okay, we'll write your statement. Well, I wrote my statement. I signed my name, and she looked at the signatures and she laughed because they were so incredibly different. And anyways, so that happened. And he's like, well, if you really want me to sign the divorce papers, just come pick me up. So I went and picked him up. He's only like 15, 20 minutes from where the courthouse was. And so I went and picked him up or whatever. And I took him to the, what's it called? The notary. Because I need him to sign the paper saying who got what. Well, the thing was going to say that he got to keep all the furniture that was technically in my name. And I got to get my car back. The car was his favorite. It was a Chrysler 300 black ragtop, beautiful car. So, and that was the car he would go cheat with his girlfriend in. But I just needed a car because I had a kid. So, went to the notary or whatever. And then he's like, yeah, but if you want me to go actually with you to file the paperwork and to sign all the paperwork, then I really, really want you to come over and like chill. Stupid. I wouldn't do that. So, anyways, and then we got all the way back to the courthouse. And he's like, I'm not signing the papers. I'm like, well, forget you. I'm leaving you here. So I left him there. And so after the whole incident with that, I went to the police station because I'm like, you know what? I've got all these pictures. I've got all this proof showing that he was abusive all these years and showing that he signed my signature and all this stuff. So I want to file charges on him. Well, the police woman that was working there, she decided she was going to go and she was going to go pick him up. Well, no. There was a gentleman there that was higher ranked that was friends with the family that said, hey, you came back. Like, you obviously must not want him in jail for real, so we're not doing anything about it. And my aunt's looking at him, and she's just like, bro, abused women do that sometimes. That doesn't mean what he did wasn't wrong. He should be in jail. So he saw the car, because it was a very distinct car there. And he pulled up at the police station. Well, my now brother-in-law had gotten a drink or whatever for me, and I technically wasn't old enough because I was only 20, even though I'd been in this marriage for 4 years, and I was about to turn 21, but I wasn't yet. So he opened it and made it try to seem as if I was drinking and driving, which I wasn't, because I had my kid in the car. That's irresponsible. Who would do that? And so I told the officer, I'm like, bro, you can fill the can. It's still full. Like, I haven't drank any out of it. You could test my blood level, whatever. I don't care, because I haven't done anything, which I hadn't. And he's like, well, just pour it out. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And so he tried to tell the police officer that the car was his. And I said, well, here's the paperwork that you signed saying that you were giving me the car. And he's just like, no, I didn't do that or whatever. I'm like, well, the notary symbol says that you did. And they looked at it, and his mom was there. She was like ready to fight me or whatever. She looked at the paper. She's like, you dummy, that is your signature. You got me up here trying to fight this girl for nothing. And so they left. And so later on, when I decided to reach out to the dude, because every time that I would try to tell my son's dad that our kid was actually his, because I lied to him before because I didn't want to deal with him. Anyways, my ex would fight me. And so I never told him. Well, then when I left him, I actually reached out to him and told him. We did the DNA test because he asked for one. Fair enough, 4 years, whatever. So did all that, and the kid was his. So I ended up moving to where he was. We broke up, and I moved to a different part of Georgia with another aunt. And I didn't have enough money saved up to move out on my own. So I lived with her for a little bit, and then I moved out on my own. And then the guy got done with what he was doing in his part of Georgia. He moved there where I was. So my son's dad and I are back together, and my ex finds out, and my husband was in the military at the time. And so my ex-husband was like, oh, she's still my wife, da-da-da-da-da, and was trying to get him in trouble with his higher-ups. And so he bought a track phone or whatever, and put it in my husband's name, which is my baby daddy, and was threatening himself, texting himself, threatening himself. So my husband would have to go back and forth to Alabama, which was about 8 hours from where he was at the time, and he would have to go to court. Well, I sent him the paperwork because I still had access to my ex's email, and I sent the paperwork with him to court. They dismissed it. So anyways, all that happened. He got mad because he couldn't have me in the end. And then my husband and I, which is my baby daddy, have now been married happily almost 8 years now. No more problems with the ex. And yeah, so Susie, I don't think that your story about pesto is crazy. The crazier part is I've never had pesto. So yeah.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That's not crazy at all, Susie, but I'll tell you what is. 2001, I was in high school, lived in Las Vegas, and our neighbor at the time had crazy parties all the time. I think this guy was having a midlife crisis. I don't know. He was probably late 50s, early 60s. I'm guessing here. I don't really know. He drove a Corvette, constant parties, strangers coming and going all the time. Anyways, one time, he had this guy that was over there who came over and asked if he could use the phone. We were literally walking out the door to go, I don't know, grocery shopping or something. And I'm the oldest of 8, so it was a task to like load all the kids into the car. Anyway, so the kids were getting in the car, and my mom was like, sure, you can use the phone. Just make it quick. We're about to leave. He's like, yeah, should just take a minute. So I go in to make a bottle for one of my siblings, and I overhear the guy on the phone saying something to the effect of, the last time I saw her, I dropped her off at such and such place, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, he's talking to a friend or something like that. He needs a piece of paper to write something down. So my mom gives him this, a piece of paper, ripped a piece of paper out of this notebook. And the notebook had, like a printed design on it. It was Family Guy. Anyway, so he writes his little note and then he leaves. We, lock up, head out, leave. A couple days later, my mom is gone. I'm babysitting the siblings. And there's a knock at the door. Open the door. It's 2 gentlemen, and they're detectives. And they say, is your mom here? We need to speak to her. And I said, no, she's not here right now. I can have her give you a call. So they give me their card. I said, I'll have her call you when she gets back. And so put the card away. And my mom's gone for a while. And a little bit later, They knock again. Hey, is your mom back? I'm like, no, she's still gone. And they're like, okay. And then I notice after the second time they knocked, they just hung out outside in their car for a while till my mom got back. So my mom gets home. They talk to her, and she comes back in and says, apparently, the neighbor who we let use our phone killed his mother and his girlfriend, and they needed the notebook that we ripped a page out of for him because they found it in his blood spattered car, and that blood belonged to his girlfriend, who they could not find. And so that's crazy. Anyways, I'm an author, so check out my books.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto. I don't know why. I think it's because it never has enough.
Oh my God, Susie, that is so crazy. But let me tell you about this time me and my husband walked up to this convenience store up the road. So we walk up to this convenience store up the road, and we were holding hands, and we walked in. We're shopping. We were up there buying cigarettes and, you know, whatever we wanted, junk food and all. And I'm standing next to my husband as he's checking out at this, like, it's like a bodega, you know, so there's like plexiglass and there's a little register. And I'm standing beside my husband waiting for him to get done. And all of a sudden, this 5'6" guy walks through the door, and I'm 6 foot tall. So I'm just standing there minding my own business. I didn't even see the guy walk in. And all of a sudden he puts his face in my breast, and he's like trying to grab on me, and he's like trying to flirt with me. And I'm like, I'm tapping my husband like, babe, help. And so him and my husband get into this shoving match, and like they're getting ready to duke it out in this convenience store. And so I'm like, babe, let's just go. Let's get out of here. We live right down the street. We're like not even 2 minutes away. So I thought everything was settled and done with. And then all of a sudden one day I walk up to the same convenience store, and I'm buying cigarettes, and I'm walking back down, and all of a sudden I hear a vehicle coming behind me. And I'm like, okay, let me get over to the side. And I cross the street, and I'm walking home, and this vehicle is beeping the horn at me and rolls down the window. And this guy starts telling me how he worships me. He wants to be with me in that way. And I'm sexy, and I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, I'm real awkward. I'm like, thanks for the compliments, but I'm married happily. And he's like, well, if you change your mind. And I'm like, no, thanks, bye. And so I come in, I immediately tell my husband runs out there. He's cussing at the guy. Also, another big fight. Well, the guy drives off. Literally an hour and a half later, I find out that this is my across the street neighbor, and he's married. So I could probably never leave my apartment alone, because this guy like scares the crap out of me. So yeah, but store-bought pesto is so crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto. I don't know why. I think it's because...
Susie, that is so crazy. When I was 19, I met a guy online through a chat program called ICQ. He lived in California. I lived in Oklahoma. For spring break, I flew out to meet him and spend the week with him. At the end of that week, he proposed. I flew back home to Oklahoma, and 3 months later, I packed all of my stuff into 3 boxes, hopped on a flight to San Jose to live with him.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
That is crazy, Susie. So when growing up, I had 2 other brothers, and we grew up with my youngest brother's father, which we knew wasn't my biological dad. I wish I could show the photo. You could definitely tell. But, I spent my whole life trying to figure out who was this individual as my dad. My mom didn't really have a good idea of who he was. She was young and said she was wild with her life. So one day for Christmas, my middle brother said, hey, you want me to get you a DNA test? So I said, okay, yeah, sure, let's do it. I get the DNA test. I send it in. I get a couple hits back, a lot of them from my grandfather's side, but a few from the other side of my family. I look at the tree. There's not a lot of promising details in there. I send one that the individual I'm sending this message to has to be like 1,000,000 years old. And then another one, which would be like my greatest niece, and then a couple other family members. So I don't really hear anything back. It's cool to see that, cool to see some of the stuff in my genetic traits. But one day I'm sitting there and I'm watching old Dr. Phil on TV, and he's doing an episode about people who found their family via DNA test. And lo and behold, one of the family members reaches out to me because I had sent them multiple messages in English and in Spanish saying, hey, I'm just trying to reach out. They were watching the same episode. Wild. So this person gives me some information about family members, but they warn me. They're like, don't message these people. They're not good people. And I was like, oh, well, I'm still trying to find out. So I messaged another individual, and I find a lady, and she's very helpful. I find out that my father is one of 6 individuals. So the individual that I spoke to, he had passed away, but it's one of his brothers. So there's 5 people. So we look at these 5 individuals, and I kind of narrow it down to an individual that, according to the timeline and where my mom said she was when she had me, this is probably the individual. So I start messaging him, and we have a conversation and everything, and he starts telling me stuff about his life and everything else like that, and then he's kind of like, well, who do you think is your father? Which one of us do you think it is? And I'm like, well, it's you. So, he kind of stops messaging me then. But he let me know a lot about his life, where he lived, where he was, and it lines up. So I sent my mom a picture of the individual, says, yo, does this look like a dude you banged? And she said, don't say that. And then she laughed, and she said, I don't know. It was a wild time in my life. So I wait 3 months. 3 months go by, and I message him again. I said, hey, just reaching out again, trying to figure out, if you know anything or want to move forward. And he said, who is this? This is a Facebook Messenger. You can see the entire conversation above. And I said, oh, well, this is Anthony and everything else. And he's like, oh, yeah, the guy that messaged me about one of my brothers being your father. And I said, listen, I'm not trying to trick you, bud. I don't think it's one of your brothers. I think it's you. And he says, well, what makes you think that? And I said, well, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I don't live there. I live here. And I said, well, you said you lived here. Did you live there in the past? And you know what he tells me? He says, the government has sealed off my past from when I was in the military, and I can't talk about it. So, yeah, Susie. Then he blocked me. That was crazy, though.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never store-bought pesto.
Susie, super crazy, but let me tell you about the time where I had just turned 21. I was in the middle of nursing school, and the bottom of my feet started sweating and itching profusely. I know, gross, right? Gross. I thought maybe it was fungal, so I went to the drugstore and I got some creams. I tried those out for several weeks. It didn't do anything for me, so I went to go see a doctor at the clinic. I went to the clinic, saw the doctor. Doctor looked at my feet. He's like, I don't see any fungus on your feet, so stop using the creams. And he was like, just for shits and giggles, let's just do some lab work. So we did the lab work. Lab work came back normal. He's like, I don't see anything here. If it worsens, come back and see me, right? Within a month and a half, the itching started spreading. It climbed up my legs, eventually my torso, then my arms, and basically my whole body. All I did was scratch, right? But there was nothing visibly on my body. But out of precaution, I went and I saw the doctor again. I went to go see the doctor. Doctor looked at my skin. He's like, I don't see anything on it. He's like, what other symptoms have you had? I'm like, just the sweating of the feet and the itching. He's like, okay, let's do some lab work. Did some lab work. Lab work came back normal. He goes, unfortunately, there's not much I can do because you don't have any physical rash on you. He's like, if it gets worse, come back and see me. I said, okay, fine. So about a month, almost two, about a month and a half after, I started getting these small little eruptions on my neck. And I said, okay, maybe this is why I've been itching this whole time, right? And so I went to go see a dermatologist. Dermatologist said, well, you have eczema. That's what he diagnosed me with. And I was like, oh. And he's like, but you have adult onset eczema, which I guess is worse than having it when you were a little kid. So I was like, what's the treatment? He goes, there is no treatment. Basically, this is for life. And I said, okay. He gave me some creams. We tried some creams. We tried some oral medications. And basically none of it worked, because what was happening with this type of eczema was that it was coming back. It would clear, but it would come back angrier, redder, bigger, scarier. So much so that my whole body started looking like a geographical map. And it got to the point where I physically could not take a shower. And I know that's gross, disgusting, but I did wash my important parts every single day. And I would actually subject myself to taking a shower twice a week, only because when any water touched my body, especially the rashes, it felt like acid was being poured on my skin. The physical pain was just too much for me to bear, that I would literally break down and cry after every single shower. So in between, I would use wipies, but the 2 times a week that I would subject myself to taking a shower, it was absolute torture. Of course, this did take a toll on my mental health, and that did decline. I did fall into a deep depression. I did get some help for that. I did go on psychiatric meds. I did see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, but that's for another video. I kept dealing with the rashes. At that point, I had finished nursing school. I got my first job, and I had pretty good health insurance. So basically, that was it. That was my life. Work, dermatologist appointments, because that's all I could do, and psychiatry appointments. So it got to the point where I just did not want to take a look at myself at all. I would just go to my dermatologist, and basically that was my life. Work, dermatology, work, dermatology, work, dermatology. And I remember going to an appointment with him one time, and he walked into the room and he looked at me and he goes, can I be candid with you? Honest? And I was like, sure, shoot. He goes, you look like shit. Now, I've never had a doctor tell me that before, but I appreciated his honesty. He goes, go get this lab work done, and I'll see you next week as scheduled. Because at this point, I was seeing him very regularly just to try to tackle the eczema, because he had said this was not normal eczema. He's never seen anything like it in his whole career. So he said, so he basically took me under his wing, and he's like, we're gonna find out what's wrong with you. So I went to go get the lab work done, and within a couple of days they called me back, and they said, drop everything you're doing and go to the hospital right now. Turns out what he had seen was I was jaundiced. So I was in the hospital about 4 days. They asked me everything under the sun, my drug use, my sexual history, and they concluded that basically it was because of one of my psychiatric meds had caused a reaction. On day 4, I was due to be discharged, and it just happened to scratch my neck, and I felt a tiny little lump. I told the nurse. Nurse came back and said, well, your body has been fighting infection, so it could be, you have some swollen nodes. I took it at face value. I said, okay, that's fine. I went home, continued my usual routine, and within about 3 weeks, the lump started growing, and I mean swelling to a point where I was like, okay, I think I know what I may have. So I scheduled an appointment with my primary care doctor. I went to go see her. As soon as she opened the door to the room, she gravitated to my neck, and I was like, I think I know what this is. She goes, let's not jump to conclusions. We don't know what this is. Let's schedule you for a biopsy. Scheduled me for a biopsy. Biopsy was scheduled 4 weeks out. 4 weeks out. Now, with my mental state, I could not wait 4 weeks. Ended up having a massive panic attack. Went to the hospital, explained to them what was going on. They quickly admitted me. Next day, they did the biopsy. The following day, came back. Oncologist walked in, and you know the rest. Came and told me you have cancer. But Pesto, super crazy, Susie, super crazy.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Susie, that's crazy. It reminds me of this one time that my ex-husband tried to set the car on fire with me and my 3 kids in it. But let's back up a little bit. So I met him when I was 17. We got married when I was 19. And the whole time, I was an idiot. The whole time he was abusive. But I stayed. Mainly because my home life wasn't great either. And I thought I loved him and I thought he would change. And then I got pregnant with my oldest. Well, fast forward, Christmas of 2017, I left my daughters with him, and they were very young. Like, my twins had just turned 5 days before, and my oldest was 8. And I left them with him while I went to buy stocking stuffers the last little bit. It was December 23rd, actually our 8-year wedding anniversary. So I come home from buying stocking stuffers, and this is probably where I have a little bit to do with it. I came in and he was asleep, and I never had him watch the girls much. I didn't, not for long periods. He just didn't have the patience. So I came home and the girls had gotten into the Christmas presents and unwrapped them. Thankfully they didn't see any of their stuff, but they, you know, they got into Christmas presents. So I go to look and see where he is. He's asleep. Slept the whole time. So my 5-year-olds, barely 5, and my 8-year-old were left unattended the whole time I was gone. So I woke him up and I told him, you know, that was really irresponsible to go to sleep while you're watching them. They open these Christmas presents. This is what happens when you don't watch children. So let me preface this to say that while he was abusive to me, he had never put his hands on my children. And he knew that this was my hill to die on. I told him many times before. I actually left him when I was pregnant with my twins. And when we got back together, I told him, I have 3 hills to die on. If you ever go back to drugs, I'm done. You ever put your hands on me again, and I'm done. You put your hands on my children, and I'll kill you. And time went on. He started playing with meth again. And I should have been done. But it wasn't enough. And then he started putting his hands on me again. And I should have been done. But I didn't love myself enough. Well, that day, he finally did it. And he stormed into the room where my girls were. And he punched my oldest in her back. And slammed one of the twins down onto the bed face first and the other one backwards. And that was it. I saw red. I was done. God had given me all these signs before to leave, and I hadn't listened, but this is the one that I would. So I immediately leave. We're done. I want a divorce. Get out. And he ended up putting his hands on me that day, but he left. Well, Christmas morning, he shows up, and he just wants to see the girls open their presents. That's it. And then he'll leave. His mom's going to come pick him back up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be that mom who, or that woman who kept her kids from their father. He wasn't going to see him unsupervised, but I thought that I was enough. So the girls open their presents. He's supposed to leave. Me and the girls leave for Christmas with my family. We were gone till like 9:45 that night. And when we got home, he was still there. We had a shed out in the yard. It was a man cave. And he was out there. I hadn't locked it. And he came in, and I asked him, "Where's your mom?" And he immediately started ranting. And I knew him, and I knew the situation could escalate very quickly. So I immediately was like, "Hey, I brought these leftovers home. You know, do you want some? My grandmother sent you $50 for Christmas. Here you go." You know, just trying to placate him and
keep things calm and still, hey, where's your mom? And he was still very irate. He fixed a plate and he was like, did you poison this? In front of the girls, and he told them, oh, I bet your mama poisoned this. She's trying to kill me. And so I immediately at that point called my dad, because I was like, I know something. I know it's fixing to get bad. And I'm still calmly trying to, hey, do you need me to call your mom? Like, I can call her, see where she's at. And he's like, no, I'm just going to go out here. I want to watch a Christmas movie with the girls before she gets here. So him and the girls go out to the man cave. And they're watching a Christmas movie. Well, he comes back in. He told the girls he had to go to the bathroom. And it's just me in the house. And I'm trying to, like, organize everything the girls got for Christmas. Put everything up. And I'd gotten a tumbler for Christmas. And he's ranting about, you don't love me. You never loved me. You're a horrible person. I'm the biggest bitch in the whole wide world. And I'm like, I'm sorry you feel that way. Where's your mom? So he picks up the tumbler and throws it at me. And it lands right above my head. Bust a picture of my kids that was on the wall. We had a sign on above the chimney that said love lives here, and he rips that down and tears it up. And the whole time I'm like, you need to go. And so he goes back out to where the girls are, and I immediately run after him, and I'm like, girls, come in. I'm like, we're done, daddy's fixing to leave, I need y'all to come in. And so I get them in, and I'm walking in. He grabs me and turns me around, and he has a hammer. And I just start screaming, because I know what he's capable of. And another reason I'd never left was because I felt like if I left, it was going to be in a body bag. And there had been an instance before where I have epilepsy, and he had slammed my head into a cinder block wall until I had seizures, and I passed out. And I came to him over me, bitch, don't die. Bitch, you better not die. And my 3-year-old at the time was right there above me. Mommy, please wake up. Mommy, don't die. And I knew that something in my soul told me that day that if I go, he's going to take them with me and then kill himself. So he's got the hammer. I start screaming. He loses his mind. Shut up. You're causing a scene. He takes the $50 that my grandmother had given him, that I had given him, and shoves it in my mouth, trying to shut me up. And I get free, and I run in the house, and I lock all the doors. And I'm telling my dad the whole time, call 911. Call 911. And because I was like, this is it. I finally left him. This is it. So I get off the phone with my dad for a second, and I call 911, and then all of a sudden the girls start screaming. He's at the back door with a crowbar, prying it open. And so I'm on the phone with the police, and I'm like, he's prying the door open. We get disconnected. I take the girls we run out of the house to my car, and I lock us in. And I realize I left the keys. I left them sitting on the bookcase. And he comes up to the windows, and he's beating on it. And he, anyways, he's beating on the windows. And then he realizes I don't have the keys. I can't leave. So he goes to go in the house to look for him. And I finally screamed, Brad, I called the cops. The cops are on their way. Just stop. And he turns around and says, bitch, you called the cops on me? If I can't have you knowing, we'll all go together. And he grabs a torch and he lights it and walks towards the car with me and the girls in it. And starts aiming the torch towards the car. And the whole time my girls are screaming, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Thankfully, I was able to snap him out of it. And I was like, listen to your daughters. So he stops. I get the girls out of the car and I tell them to go in. And the cops pull up. But yeah, store-bought pesto.
Call me crazy if you want, but I've never liked store-bought pesto.
Oh my god, Susie, that's so crazy. So fucking crazy. But let me tell you about the time that my dumbass almost lost her life in San Felipe, Mexico's beach, okay? Alright, so hear me out, right? So my mom and dad used to take us to San Felipe, Mexico every summer. Like, we would go even when it wasn't summer. We just like Mexico that much. So I'm about 16, 17 years old, and I was with some friends, and I told my mom, ay, mamá, tú nunca me dejas hacer nada divertido. And I wanted to go walk on the beach because the tide, on low tide, the water goes really, really far out, right? So I was like, ay, mamá, tú nunca me dejas hacer nada. And then this time she was like, no, you could go. Because, like, the restaurant where she was eating with her friends, she could see me, right? But I guess my mom got, like, too into it. She, like, completely forgot that we existed with her friends. So me and my friends were able to, and my sister and my little brother. I don't remember if my little brother was with me, but I remember my sister being with me and, like, 3 other friends. And we made it out because I wanted to go to this rock that was, like, at the edge of, like, where the boardwalk was. And I wanted to walk. And the water goes far, pretty damn far, right? So I'm like, let's go. And yo era la pinche metiche que was like, let's go see that rock. So we made it out, and then I'm like, look, we're far out enough, ya hay que regresarnos, right? At this point, I couldn't see my mom anymore. So we make it out really far, and we start heading back. But the tide starts coming in, and, like, it reaches my ankles at first, and then it starts reaching my knees, and we're not even halfway back to the beach. We're, like, still out walking, picking fucking seashells. By the time we make it, like, maybe halfway through, we're swimming at this point. Like, you know, kind of like Gilligan's Island, trying to get to the shore, right? And I felt like I was going to die. Like, I literally felt like I was going to be taken away, and the Green Reaper was there, and, like, I was, like, trying to save my sister. I don't remember if my baby brother was there. But I was like, oh my God, me voy a morir, me voy a morir. And I was like, why didn't I listen to my mom? Right? And then all of a sudden, this, like, cause you're in Mexico, there's, like, a lot, like, San Felipe, it's, like, touristy, right? So there's, like, the boats with the bananas that they pull. So I see this guy with a boat, and, I, like, started waving him down because I couldn't breathe anymore, and I felt like my legs were numb, and it was just fucked up. So I pull him over, and I'm like, can you take us to shore? And he got me and my friends, and he, like, used the boat to, like, take us to shore. And then I make it to the restaurant where my mom was. And I'm not upset with anybody else but my mom. And I get to her and I'm like, Mamá, ¿no te diste cuenta que yo no estaba? Casi me muero. She's like, ay, pendeja. Like, yeah, that's my scary story. Like, I almost died in San Felipe, Mexico, and that would have been the shit. Like, what the hell was I thinking? So never again. And now I don't let my kids go out and walk with their friends because I'm afraid they're going to drown. So, yeah. Anyways, just wanted to share that story. Have a great day. Love you. Bye.